Good morning and welcome to another NorCal Malabra battle report. This will be the third one. We've got what I thought was an interesting battle. Actually, let me back that up. Yeah, I almost didn't do this battle report. It's been 2 weeks since we did this game. We're in the holiday season. There's been a lot of after hours holiday parties, networking events, all the fun stuff that goes along with December. And so some of my recollection of this game is a little hazy. Throw in, I was not happy at all with the angles of the photos in this one. And I'm thinking what I'm going to do for the next one is have Josh and Mike, Colonel play, and then I'll just take notes and take a ton of pictures and figure out what kind of angles I like to throw half of them out, but figure out what angles of photos really help tell the story of the game itself. Um, but and in third, Colonel and I don't think played a particularly sharp game. I'm a little disappointed in myself in that since I played a crew I was. This is probably the crew I have the most experience with, and Leviticus is brand new to Mike, so a couple errors on his part would be expected for a new master. But you know what? Can't always just put up the best games. Hopefully, if I can remember them, I'll try to point them out just as a learning experience. With that said, with the photos, I'm going to try to take it a little bit slower this time. Really focus on each slide and see if I could paint the picture verbally rather than just through the photo. So we started with the struts and schemes generated from our handy dandy app. Ended up with standard deployment, reckoning, and then the scheme pool: take prisoner, search the ruins, detonate charges, vendetta, power ritual. I actually am think this is a pretty interesting scheme pool because it's kind of all over the map. And when I was coming up with my list, I thought of, all five of these were doable schemes. But as we'll see, Colonel and I would end up taking the same schemes. So I think I said in my first battle report we didn't have any, between the three of us, we didn't have any outcasts. And I don't know if Mike heard that or if he was just looking for hobby, but he had a ton of outcast models left over from M2E. He had been reasonably successful on the tournament circuit with some prize support. I think picking up odds and ends from other players, things like that. And in typical Colonel fashion, he goes on painting binges, paints very quickly at an extremely high quality, and it pisses me off. In the time it takes me to paint a single model, he ends up, dropping whole crews of this whole cruise of models that will probably end up, finalists in various painting awards, or at least competing, for a top three painting award at some of the local tournaments here. So taking a look at his pool, this is his second game. He had played Josh the week before with Levi. I was unfortunately not able to make it again. Actually, I think I was in. I don't know what was going on. I was actually probably in Minneapolis, which didn't realize that Renegade had a Malifaux tournament. I might have wandered over and at least said hello to the Strats and Schemes folks there and in the local community. I wouldn't have had time to play in the tournament, but missed opportunity there. So he's got Levy, the two waifs, Rusty Alice, Ashes and Dust, Hans, Lazarus, and Vanessa taken out of the keyword. I think Vanessa's primary role was going to be healing, given the reckoning, as well as being able to deal out some damage. Lazarus, I believe he took to put, he knows, he's played against Toni. That's the thing. When I play a lot of Toni, he's getting experience in trying to defeat her. And I think his one thought there was the shockwave that Lazarus can shoot out. it's a damage 3 shockwave, which is not inconsequential. Um, it does go after defense, and so I still get my positives from on defense flips from Unionize, which is good. But it is a defense 13 duel, so most of my models need a 7 or 8. So a pretty, at least a pretty good moderate there to pass it. So I think he was just trying to put a lot of pressure on my hand through doing that, and just deal out a lot of damage. All right, so we come to Toni, and as I said, this I've probably played Toni more than all the other masters combined for Arcanists now. Um, if you really want a deep dive into Tony, you would always, as usual, recommend the Third Floor Wars. I believe their guest Doug has probably played uh, Tony certainly more in third edition than I've played total third edition games, and he does an excellent job of covering her. I've got a couple of comments I think I'll add after I go over my list here, and then kind of I'll share where I was struggling and trying to put this list together. So we have Tony and Mouse, and I will tell you that my Tony list has not changed for the most part, except for about 11, 13 Soulstones. It is Tony and Mouse. This is my standard one. Tony and Mouse, Aminu, the Soulstone Miner with magical training, the Crutch, as I like to call it, Gunsmith, and Howard Langston. That has been in every one of my Tony lists. Um, the Steam Fitter has probably been in 3/4 of them. This is actually the most stones I've ever taken in a Tony list as well. Usually I'm down to 2. And then I took the Medical Automaton as my tech choice against Levi. Now I was going around in circles. What do I take Captain? I've never played against Leviticus in third edition. Seems like there's a lot of shooting. I figured Rusty Alice would be in there, um, and he brought even more shooting than I was expecting. So the captain would have been extremely useful. Uh, as well as Fitzsimmons. Partially why I ended up avoiding or not taking either one of them was, I knew Leviticus did irreducible damage, um, and certainly they don't help against him, but they would have helped immensely against the other members of his crew. Uh, but with basically having to kill Leviticus 3 times, there's going to be a lot of irreducible damage coming my way. So I ended up just sticking with what I knew, and I've got to break this pattern. I've got to try Captain. I've got to try Fitzsimmons and see what they do, especially since they kind of speak to my theory of Tony. So the medical automaton was twofold. A, if I was taking irreducible damage, if the model could survive, I could heal it back up. It's another source of healing in addition to Mouse. So now I have 2 healing models. Also, my thought was was it bedside mammoner? Let me look it up. Give me 2 seconds here. Emergency mode, right? So if I was going to be bubbled up anyways, if anything charged in, whether that was Ashes and Dust, which was I was also expecting, or Leviticus himself charging in, and I was much more afraid of his close combat attacks versus his shooting attacks. I could always drop a card and pull it back. My thought with the shooting is, it's min damage 2, it's irreducible, that sucks. But if I'm only taking 2 damage for every shot from him, I'll live with it, and hopefully I can heal through that. But if he's getting close combat, that he could do min damage 4, and that irreducible. That will put a model down before I could blink. Aminu should also help against that with her no charge or no attack if you charge zone. So that was the general idea of the medical automaton. That was, quote, my tech choice. Union Steam Fitter could do a little healing on both the medical automaton and and Howard, um, as well as just generally, getting they the scrap marker out for power token for Howard, for popping up shielded and focus on Howard, help really spool him up. And I'll walk through kind of what I do with Howard on the first turn that just makes him god awful scary. At least, and kind of a great alpha strike if I need it. Um, so getting into Toni, kind of I'm circling this idea about Toni. She is, to me, all about creating efficiencies in my crew and creating inefficiencies in the opponent's crew. And what I mean um, is their actions aren't going to be as efficient. And if I'm taking Fitzsimmons a um, or a captain in their shooting crew, their shots, their damage dealing isn't going to be as effective. If I've got a Mina in there, they can't charge into my bubble. They've got to walk in, which is an AP, which is, they give up an attack there. So that's one less attack I have to take. Um, I can be efficient in my soul stones. Like I said, often down to two. Got the soul stone miner that can create some. A Mina that can also create some soul stones. Um, I don't have a lot of pressure on my hand because of all the positive flips on defense, so I can save them specifically for offensive uses when need be. Occasionally you do need them on defense, but uh, just be a little bit more efficient in that regards. And then Mina does a good job of passing actions on and loading them up on various models, whether that's through obeys, through giving out fast. Um, and then the steam fitter, when I'm throwing a bunch of shielded up, that's just more damage reduction and it takes a lot to punch through this crew. And so I haven't really fully developed that idea of efficiency and inefficiency, but it's something I've been circling and thinking a lot about. Um, Obviously the way to attack Toni, again, go listen to the Third Floor Wars, pull the ball apart is the best way. Not easy to do, but pull it apart. Uh, Take things that are irreducible, take things that attack willpower. Though generally it's pretty good willpower stats in the crew. So that's not, none of it is perfect. She's a tough crew in my opinion. So before I get into describing the table here, we're again at Josh's place. So you've probably seen this terrain before. Um, the I would end up taking Vendetta on Vanessa with the Soulstone Miner, as well as Search the Ruins. He would take Colonel would take Vendetta on the Gunsmith with Hans and Search the Ruins as well. So the scheme pool I kind of like it. Liked that there were 5 very doable schemes, um, and both Colonel and I end up taking the same schemes. Here we are with the table. Again, some typical stuff. If you remember last time, that crater there is going to be hazardous severe. We got dense, the 3 forests there, which are not hazardous. Sorry about that. Concealment, dense, blocking. Some water features of just dense. Typical walls. Once again, we can't go on the roofs. Um, so those are just impossible blocking cover. And then we've got that one little tree there. I would end up on the side at the bottom there. And that one little tower was annoying the hell out of me during the game. So if you see that disappearing from pictures, it's because I was moving it over because I just kept on knocking the dang thing down. So we're into my deployment here. Obviously Howard with its unimpeded doesn't care about that for us. So it's a perfect place to put it. So you got Toni. You'll see Iggy there standing in for mouse. I have lost my mouse. So I'm going to have to come up with some form of conversion. I'm thinking about, I think either Josh or Colonel have some spare random gremlins. And so I may do a gremlin head swap, put in some rope into a hand, see what I can do there to create a new mouse. You got to do that before I actually play a tournament, which God knows when that will be. Certainly, Acon, I will be at Acon, so I got 5 months to figure that out. I hope I can get a tournament in before that. I'd like to get a little practice. Um, so you got Toni, you got Iggy standing in his mouse, you got Howard, Amina, kind of, tucked at the very back. I can't get out of the force, so he can, I'm not, I still can be shot at. And then the gunsmith, and then two support models, and then the soul stone miner doing its typical hide prior to burying. So we've got Colonel here, and I think we could see most of his models. There might be another picture we'll see next. So you got the waif, Ashes and Dusts. You got Lazarus sitting there. Behind the building, you've got Rusty Alice, Leviticus, and Vanessa sitting there. And all the way at the end, sitting in that one forest with his toes in it, is um, Hans. And here's a better look at the second half of his deployment. So clearly you see Rusty and Vanessa flanking Leviticus and Hans. So we're getting the pictures. I took this one. This is kind of why I'm a little unhappy. I just took this picture because of the dramatic pose of me sauntering. I believe I was a Bade, sauntering forward. So Vanessa had moved up, um, trying to get close to the center line and be in position just to do support in the coming turns. She, of course, is my vendetta target. So starting to chip away at her wounds, even though she's going to start healing them back up. Um, is chief in mind. So I like this one. The gunsmith, and yes, I realize that is a pistolier. I cannot find a gunsmith to save my life. So that is a guild pistolier who's standing in as my gunsmith. And I'll have this all sorted out by Acon, hopefully. But yeah, just picture was taken just for dramatic purposes. I think I got another one that's similar. So this is probably a little bit more informative. This is obviously several activations in. Um, I have Union Steam Fitter threw up shielded and focus onto Howard. Dropped a scrap marker. I threw some adrenaline. The little old horror marker there, that's an adrenaline marker. Uh, Also, the Union Steam Fitters threw some shielded on to Toni as well. Mouse saunters up, drops a scheme marker. I go with a Minu, and this is kind of what I do. I push Howard forward, give him fast. He takes 2 wounds, but with the shielded and armor, he doesn't take any of the wounds. Um, so he's up. I could always obey him farther forward, but right now he's sitting with his grid ability with basically 4 AP locked and loaded for what the tail end of the turn. Hopefully, I could set something up to take advantage of that. I don't have the medical automaton where I wanted it to be, so I'll end up moving that a little later on. But I'm feeling pretty good right now. He's moving forward. Leviticus moved up. Took some pot shots at the gunslinger, and I think I was just flipping pretty well. He did a couple points of damage, but again, 2 points I can deal. I can take a shot at 2 points. Though he does ignore the hard to kill, so I'm a little worried about that. So this is typically what I like to do. I move Toni up, and I use my version of the lure there. It's stat 7. It's pretty hard to resist, if especially if you got the card in hand. I think she was able to resist the first one, which pissed me off because I wanted to start I just I listened to this Schemes and Stones episode on the taxes on outcast models, and they went on and on about Rusty Alice and how good she was, and so I was just trying to take her out. Yeah, bring it. That's the name of her lure. So I walk up, cast it once. He's able to resist it. Cast it a second time, and she runs forward. She's already activated this turn, and Vanessa's also activated this turn. So he's got no way to get her out of there, and I've got Howard just licking his chops at this point. And I do this. This is almost. I'll tell you. This is pretty standard fare for my opening moves with Toni. Um, tool Mr. Howard up, move up, try to pick a high importance model that might have pushed a little too far forward, bring it in, and then just really pound on it. So this is, I believe, what it looks like at the end of the turn here. I charge forward with Howard. Uh, Sadly, and I think I had to walk around because the charge lane, I might have been able to charge because I had pushed forward. Mouse might have been in the way, but I can't remember what happened. But Rusty kind of shrugged. I beat her up pretty good. He soulstone. So I'm eating into his soulstone cage pretty fast. He had to soulstone all the attacks. I don't think I did any more than 3. I was kept on hitting minimums. I might have missed an attack or had to walk before I charged. One of the two. So I didn't get all 4 attacks in, and I certainly didn't hit with all 4. But she is reeling. She's on her last legs. If I can go first, she's dead next turn. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. We see Ashes and Dust snuck up in prep. Dang, I'm sitting there going, God dang, Incorporeal can charge through the building. Laz moved up, because Rusty's in pretty grim shape there. He could not just drop the shockwaves exactly where he wanted to for maximum effect. I think he was able to clip like one model, maybe it was Toni or something like that, but he couldn't get all of them, given the range as well. Oh, the other reason I think he liked Lazarus was he could copy Rusty's shot, which is not inconsequential. She is a construct, which I found out. I was like, oh, I'll put up my hazardous terrain and as I'm hitting her, see if I could push her around, do extra damage to her, things like that. And he's like, oh no, she's a construct. I was like, dang it. Again, I think this is just the end of the turn showing the second half. So you can see I moved my medical automaton there. It's 3 inches away from both the gunslinger as well as mouse, so that if I get hit once, I can pull them either out of range of any potential follow-on shots. I wasn't worried about charges at this point, obviously a little too far away. So I just wanted them just to get shot once. Hans, I'm pretty dang sure Hans missed his shot at whatever he was shooting at. He was pretty lackluster this entire game, to be honest. So that's great that I put him there, but it would cause some consequences. I'm talking about the medical automaton a little later on, with me being able to get forward to do some healing. But again, I thought it was more important to limit the number of attacks on various models. So in this particular case, he won the initiative. He used, went with Vanessa, used, what's the ability that Vanessa has to pull, bear with me, I'll look it up. I've got both lists here. Sorry about this. Oh, got your back. Got your back. I believe it healed her too as well. He had the ram he needed for that. And then she healed herself as well as Rusty up. So Rusty's, while not totally healed up, is in much better shape, in much better position. So I went with Aminu, who obeyed the gunslinger to take a shot, though cover made it a little bit more difficult. on Vanessa, as well as I was able to obey a charge with Howard and just be within the 2 inches to swing um, at Vanessa as well. So did some pretty good damage there. And I know Vanessa's gone, so no healing. So feeling pretty good there. All right, well, this sideways one annoys the hell out of me. So I may go back, see if I could change this to be uh, kind of in the direction I want it, and if so, ignore everything I just said. So here's one of the frustrations I had. A lot happened between that last photo and this photo, as you can see. Lazarus ends up chucking Howard into the hazardous terrain and engagement by um, by Ashes and Dust on the other side of that building. I end up walking Howard out and then charging in, doing some more damage to Vanessa. Um, great ability. I plinked some damage. I didn't want to kill Vanessa with Howard, so I attacked Lazarus, I think, with my final one, which should have been a warning. You can see the gunslinger facing down Leviticus in a gunfight up on the top there. Um, and, it's when I decided as he's hurting himself, hey, maybe I should just shoot Leviticus and start working on the waifs. Um, and I still have Toni left to go. The Union Steam Fitter moved up, threw some shielded out as usual. Not sure what the hell she was doing. I think she was just so far back. I almost had to, maybe I just double walked up and then I couldn't drop a scrap marker like I was trying to. Or I didn't want to because he can use scrap markers as well. So I was hesitant to unless I knew I could immediately pick it back up. So with Leviticus having gone, Hans having gone, Rusty having gone, everybody's having gone, um, and Vanessa in pretty poor shape. I did drop the Soulstone Miner and charge in, hit, I think hit once out of the two swings, and was able to bring her below half. She had 3 wounds at this point. This is the end of the turn. 3 wounds left. No, I'm sorry, 2 wounds left. She would get her shield, her arcane shield back up. So I'm sitting there going, okay, great. I got to kill her and then bury myself again before Leviticus just decimates the Soulstone Miner. I didn't want to give that one out for free. And this is what the end of the turn looked like. So, I'd done some creep along to get the gunslinger into cover. Able to spray. She starts peppering not Leviticus. Well, yeah, it does. But I'm also setting up shots on Lazarus to start punching through that armor. The gunslingers are so good. I just love them. So this is turn 3. I win initiative. My hand is absolutely stacked. I think the lowest thing I had in my hand was an 8, and I had the red joker in hand. I had a couple severes. I know I had at least 113 if my memory serves me correct. And I'm sitting there going, great. I can put Vanessa down and Barry, and I'm safe. That's almost a guaranteed 2 points right there. I've already got the first point for Vendetta, but there's nothing he can do to get this to kill the Soulstone Miner. So I'm trying to decide, if I've played this correctly or not. What I did was I swung, I hit, I did min damage to. He's got his shielded up, so he's got 1 hit point left. So then I swing again, and I miss. I was like, God damn it. I buried, get him out of there. And I'm just thinking, well, that's a bit of a mistake. So he, instead of going with Vanessa, which I thought was curious, he tried to block me with Lazarus. So Lazarus goes forward. This is, if you remember, Howard's actually engaged with the Ashes and Dust goes forward, does shoots, does damage, various things like that. But I end up going with Howard. I use the grit ability to walk, um, not to walk. I'm sorry, to disengage, because there's just enough of a gap, and I've got a 2-inch reach where I can just barely touch uh, touch Vanessa. So I walk over there uh, and take a swing. Um, and so first AP, that second AP, or that was the great ability. That's a bonus action. Was to I'm sorry, I didn't disengage. I disengaged with an AP. Then I used the grid ability. I was just within 6 uh, to take the swing, and then I still have an AP left. So I kill Vanessa with Howard, pretty much guaranteeing my second point. And then I take a swing and ping some damage off Lazarus. So I made 2 mistakes here. The first is I think I should have just focused and swung at Vanessa with the Soulstone Miner. Um, this way I could have done the 3, got my moderate, um, 3 points, killed her, still had an extra AP. I could have charged something, done some damage, and then disappeared. Um, I purposely did not mine Soulstone so that I'd have 2 AP in case something went sideways. And I think the other mistake was I was actually within 2 inches of that hollow wave when I still had 1 AP with Howard left. Um, and I should have swung at the hollow wave. That would have been and killed it. Um, and that puts Leviticus in a much worse position. He's got 1 wave left, all the way back behind the building there. You see, um, and all's good. Colonel made the mistake. Why he went with Lazarus. I think he outsmarted himself. He should have just with Vanessa just ran away. Just run to the back line, hide behind the building, start healing itself up, and keep me from any opportunity to go. I would have just walked, and just gotten away. I'm not sure what I could have done at that point. I can't charge when I disengage, so I would have been depending on maybe me to move up and obey Howard and hope for the best. But that just gives him opportunities to deal with Howard, who's hurting a bit right now, no doubt about it. So I thought this was particularly poor played on both myself and Colonel's part. So Colonel makes me pay for not killing that waif with Howard, and he kills himself, I believe. Leviticus does. He was pretty low. Pops over to where the waif kills Howard. I'm not sure he had an opportunity to raise a abominate, whatever the hell. The things he can raise when he kills something. Or if he did and just didn't want to give me easy opportunities to kill things. It's been a little while. I think he may have and was worried about me just killing it to score reckoning. I think that's a mistake. I think he should have just gotten models on, especially with Search the Ruins, where he's going to need models to start dropping scheme markers eventually. So poor Union Steam Miner was trying to get, move up to the building there, get behind the building and start dropping some scheme markers herself once we got onto the other side. Sadly, I believe Rusty might have finished her off. And in this case, Ashes ends up charging Toni. Toni just tanks it. She doesn't care. I probably didn't even use Soulstones. You can see I don't have any adrenaline left, so clearly I was using adrenaline to avoid damage there, just knowing I could pick it up later. So, Gunslinger becomes the focal point once Howard's down and Toni's tanking Ashes and Dust. Part of my thought process is having the Gunslinger over here is if I can pop the core out, the Gunslinger can just finish the core off pretty fast. You can see Rusty moved up to finish off the Steam Fitter. I ended up giving the Gunslinger fast, obeying, as well as its 2 activations. So I was able to gun down Leviticus and he was hurting himself in the process of killing Howard. just to push Leviticus way back where the other hollow waif was. And then I started working over Lazarus, just doing the ignore armor. Lazarus got the cover, which is annoying, making him defense 6, but was pretty happy to do so. Medbot's in full heal mode, trying to keep the gunslinger standing. I would not be up. We'll look at the next slide, I think, and make the comment I'm about to make. So, unfortunately, you can't see it, but Hans is still sitting in the back. And with the damage I'm doing to myself, I think some of the defensive triggers for Leviticus, et cetera, Hans finally gets the shot off and wounds and takes, I believe, the gunslinger down to his hard to kill and declares vendetta. So I really wanted to go first for a couple reasons. Getting the gunslinger out of dodge is probably the biggest one. Doing some healing with it, et cetera. With the heal bot there, he just activates it, brings me back above the hard to kill, and we'll take 2 shots. But of course, I Black Joker the initiative. It somehow survives the onslaught of shots coming in. Not sure how. And I think I shoot down Lazarus, and then get out of there. I've got 1 hit, despite some healing. This is where my memory is kind of a little fuzzy. How I got the gunslinger to this point, I don't know. Probably should be dead, but not only did I get the gunslinger here, I think he did some damage on the way out. Yeah. So you can clearly see the gunslinger finished off Lazarus, helping myself out there. So at this point, I haven't been mentioning the reckoning points. So turn 2. Don't think there were any reckoning points given out. Turn 3, we both scored. Howard and Vanessa went down. He also got the steam fitter. So, I'm sitting there going, okay, if I can put something else down this turn, maybe I can get some more reckoning. So, again, poor decision, I think, on Colonel's part here. I believe he charges Leviticus into Toni. We have a square down where we're punching the hell out of each other. He goes down before I do. So pretty happy in that regard. I think he killed Mouse, which is what that other corpse that popped up. As well, he might have killed. I'm not sure how he got all the way the hell up there so fast. But yeah, it's the Masters go toe to toe, and Toni comes out on top on that one. So Toni's feeling good. Smashes the Ashen Core. Smashes Ashes and Dust. You see the core drop there. Sadly, my gunslinger is now dead, so I can't just gun it down. And then way off to the right, the Dust Storm pops up, probably in preparation for some Search the Ruins. So my medical automaton decides he's going to move over. Ashen Core actually dropped. This might be turn 5, actually. I'm just moving Aminu back, so can't score an easy, reckoning off of her, though I think she'd be pretty tough to take down. I've got some stones left. Now that he's going for Search the Ruins and she can see things, I'm just generating more stones. As well as a Soulstone Miner had popped up in turn 4, way off to the left. I waited until I saw where the Dust Storm was going to go before I activated Soulstone Miner. So he mined a Soulstone, popped down, so he could drop a scheme marker for search on turn 5. But with the Ashen Core not having an engagement range, and we went back and forth on this one, I was able to walk over, engage with my 0, um, and pick up the ski marker, and he couldn't do anything about it, and can't drop another ski marker. So I was just going to lock down the ashen core there. Yeah, this is one I'm not sure why I took it. Um, this, I guess, shows where Toni and Rusty are. Move on to the next one. So with that, I run Toni around. I drop a ski marker for search the ruins. That I took this picture, then realized, oh, timeout. That terrain piece is not wholly within his half, but the woods are. And I had enough movement that I could just move the extra ½ inch and place it on the woods. The soulstone miner was far off to the left. There was like a little tree there that I was able, totally on his side, that I was able to drop a ski marker on or next to. So, um, remember, for search the ruins, it has to be touching a piece of terrain completely on your opponent's half of the table. I did not actually know that, but Colonel was kind enough to point that out and remind me and allow me to take the extra movement to get there. I think I just walk, and then dropped a ski marker. So that's the end of the game. So with that, it comes to an end. Rusty was just didn't have enough movement to be able to walk up and drop a ski marker on a piece of terrain on my half of the table. So he couldn't get his search just by by very, very, quarter-inch, less than a quarter-inch, eighth of an inch. We spent some time. Either way, it didn't really matter. I would have won either way. So in the final scheme of things, I would come out victorious. I would score 2 for Reckoning. I would score 2 for Vendetta, and then 1 for the search on that last turn. Colonel would score 1 for Reckoning, 2 for Vendetta, and none for his search. I think this is where, if he had brought some A-bombs onto the table, abominations, whatever the heck that Levi could summon, that would have given him AP to get that search the ruins done. Me locking up the Ashen Core with the Metabot and keeping him from being able to drop a ski marker, which he didn't see coming, and denied him the ability to drop, because he had placed that core in a place where if it dropped a ski marker, it would be touching a piece of terrain. And I just denied him that ability to do it. He was expecting to score it completely with Ashes on that last turn. Good game. Like I said, there was that one turn where I think both Colonel and I, just did not play particularly well. Other than that, I think after going through the slides, I was okay with most of everything else. I think Colonel could have been more aggressive with Leviticus and with his waifs moving forward. My learning point is, hey, you got an opportunity to take a waif down, do it. It's absolutely worth it. It's just, that's 8 more wounds you don't have to do to Leviticus. He's not as hard to kill as I remember in 2E because of that, just because he can't summon more waifs. He's still scary. That crew, I think, can put out a lot of punishment. This was an interesting one in that it was a bloodbath. There were not a lot of models left, yet it was Reckoning, and not a lot of scoring happened. It seemed to either come in bunches, or where we were overkilling for what we needed to score, or we were just short a Reckoning point. So, but I felt, if I had an opportunity to take a model down, I was just going to do it. All his models could just dish out a lot of damage. I didn't want to leave one left with a couple of health where he could win an initiative and take a model out. So I figured I'd just keep hammering away at him. And I think Tony's just so tanky. Tony's crew's so tanky that it's harder to time a model. Time the ability to take models out when you need to score. So with that, hopefully we'll get one more done before the Christmas here. I'm going to try to maybe next week. I, let's see if I can just have Colonel and Josh play. I'll take a bunch of pictures, experiment around, take notes, and then just narrate their game. So with that, keep flipping well, and I'll see you next time.